Michael, thank you for taking the time.
Good to see you over here in Fairview Heights.
You are a visionary real estate developer, someone who has developed over 200 retail centers totaling over 45 million square feet. You're also a well-known philanthropist, and you've donated over 100 million to various causes.
Running into Sam Walton was probably one of the luckier things I got to do, because I got to do Walmart deals because of what I did. I came up with an idea in Excelsior Springs, and I saw a big Walmart store, and I couldn't find a site. So I picked up the phone and tried to meet Sam Walton, and he wouldn't meet me. And so I drove down to Bentonville, and he said, "Mr. Walton, everybody has to go to the bathroom." I said, "I just sat next to the bathroom." And he said, "Well, what do you need?" I said, "I have an idea. When I pass away, I'm going to have a nice estate, and it's going to be given away in 7 years. There's no Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation. Give it away. Help people today."
Michael, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Good to see you over here in Fairview Heights.
I appreciate you making the trip over. You are a visionary real estate developer, someone who has developed over 200 retail centers totaling over 45 million square feet. You're also a well-known philanthropist, and you've donated over 100 million to various causes. Very well known locally here in St. Louis, I think. Very well known in the retail real estate world as well. And you currently have some very exciting projects going on in Chesterfield, which is actually where I live. So I'm very excited to talk about those projects.
You must have a long drive every day to get over here.
Well, with work from home, I'm working from home most of the time. I'm in the office maybe one day a week. But you're right. It is quite a drive. But thank you for taking the time. Really do appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
I'd like to start with just kind of getting a sense of how you grew up, where you grew up, and your first experience in either real estate or entrepreneurship. My understanding is you grew up in Omaha. Is that correct?
I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and I had a great childhood. When I grew up there, Omaha was the middle of the country. And, it was just bread and butter, and it was a great experience. I had good parents. Unfortunately, my dad passed away when I was young, but he taught me the value of hard work, the value of being persistent, showing up on time, and philanthropy. And so without his insistence, I wouldn't be who I am today. And so, but growing up in the 60s, was a different world than it is today. And without great mentors, I wouldn't be here today. So I've had a very charmed life, and I've been very fortunate, and I've met a lot of interesting people along the way. So as I said, my childhood was good. Even though we had, I would say, not much money, I still thought we were doing pretty well. I grew up in a house of 1,400 square feet. I think there were 2 bathrooms, 3 bedrooms for 4 kids, and, of course, a couple parents. And so it was, but when my dad died, it was challenging. I've been working since I've been 13, 14 years old. But, without that, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Got it. It's interesting that you mention mentors that helped you along the way. That's one of the reasons why I do this show, is so people can have access to mentors that they may not meet, in real life, call it. Along the way, from what I've read and heard, you met people, I think it was first in Kansas City at Leo Eisenberg company.
Correct.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, they kind of brought you to St. Louis, and then you met a few other folks and started THF. Can you kind of give us the early years of your real estate journey?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it was interesting. So I thought I was going to go to Stanford, and a friend of mine says to me, and it's February in Omaha, and it's really beautiful. He says, I need someone to drive with me, and my parents are willing to give you some money, because I know you'll have to go away from your job, to drive with me. And when I went down to Arizona, I saw those girls. I saw the weather. It was 18 to drink. And I thought, well, who needs to go to Stanford? And I was getting a scholarship to Stanford. And I went to the Arizona State Admissions Office, and they gave me a better scholarship. So that's why I went there. And that's kind of evolved because I'll tell you how I got to Kansas City. So my college roommate and I lived together for 4 years, Nathan. And, we had no idea. I thought I was going to go to law school. I thought that would be a great way, but I had no money and I was, doing different things. And in my senior year, I'll never forget this October, November, there was an ad that said mobile home park salesman. Nate says, we should go do that. So we go do that. We sign up and we take a little real estate class. And the next thing I know, we sold 3 or 4 mobile home park sites and I had like $3,000 in my pocket. I'm thinking, wow, this is what I need to get into. So I was telling my mom this, and she said, well, your dad had a 5th cousin in Kansas City that runs a company called Leo Eisenberg. And so, I call him up and he said, the first thing he says, I'm not hiring. But I don't take that as a no. I said, well, Irv, I'd like to come see you. He said, well, come see me in January. Well, I'm in Arizona. He's in Kansas City. It was a little chilly. And so I went down to Kansas City or up to Kansas City and met him. And I was in awe. I've never been like, this is the guy I want to go work for. So I called him every day and he would never take my call. And so finally he started taking my calls and he says, okay, you're wearing me out. I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. You can start on June 1st and it's commission only. There's no draws and I'll see you June 1st. I said, great. So I show up May 15th. Got to be a little early. And he looked at me and says, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm here. I have nothing else to do. And so it was quite an interesting time, meeting Irv Maislish and Leo Eisenberg. And there was Bob Johnson and Gray Turner and people like that took an interest in me.
And just for context, what year was that roughly?
That was 1976. And there's a gentleman named Gray Turner. And can I swear on this?
It's all good.
I don't want to say anything, but he looked at me one day and he says, you're really a smart kid. Shut the up. You got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Quit talking. Just listen. And without him telling me that, I'd probably not be successful. And he said, let me take you and show you how to do this. I think I made $2,290 my first year. Second year, I made $7,300. The third year, I made $100,000 in 1978, 79. So I listened to him. And I was able to meet a lot of people because of what he taught me. So without him, and there was another gentleman besides Irv and Leo named Arvin Gottlieb, who taught me a life lesson about making sure you got things in writing. I was doing a transaction, and I said, the commission's X, and he said, sure, we'll pay that. So I got to the closing table, and I said, well, my commission's X, and he said, well, do you have it in writing? And I looked at him, I said, no, sir, I don't. He says, well, I'm sorry, I can't pay you. Now, this was like $6,000 to me. And so I don't know I don't know how to tell Irv Maislish that I'm coming back with no money. And I needed the money. I have no money. And so I go back and, I look at Irv and I said, I got a little problem, but I'm going to work it out. And he laughs. Yeah, obviously he and Arvin were in cahoots. So that Friday afternoon, this is Monday, this Friday afternoon, he calls me and says, how you doing? I said, well, Mr. Gottlieb, I've learned my lesson. Thank you. It won't, I still need that money. And he said, what are you doing tonight? And I said, I don't know, nothing. I'd be happy to meet you wherever. And he says, well, come to my office. And I go to his office and he says, you like scotch? I said, not really. He says, good. Takes a bottle of Johnny Walker, puts it on the table and says, we're going to have some drinks together. So the good news is I only lived a block away, so I could walk home. So we had more than a couple drinks with no ice. And I'm not a big scotch drinker. I am now, but I wasn't. And I'm leaving and he says, here's an envelope, open it Monday morning. And so I said, okay. So Sunday night, 12:01, I'm opening that envelope. And there was not a check, but there was 10 $1,000 bills in there and said, you're going to be successful. Don't trust people. unless you get it in writing. I'll see you next Friday for drinks. And so for the next couple of years, 2 or 3 times a month, I would go to his office and he'd explain transactions, how to do business, what was important in business. And I'd go to meetings with him and he'd let me sit in. And he was a great mentor. And I remember the early lessons. He always said, show up on time, show up, be appropriate, return people's calls, be persistent. He said, no is yes, things like that. And so it was a great learning experience.
And what types of transactions were you guys focused on at that time?
Well, I was a leasing agent and doing management, just, basic real estate. I had no idea what I was doing. And the real estate business back then was so different than today, completely different. And the strip shopping center was the stepchild to the mall. And there was, it was just an interesting time. And it was really, really interesting. However, I got lucky because one of the people I met was a gentleman named Norman Lease of Godfather's Pizza. That was a big chain. And Godfather started in Omaha. And Gray Turner helped me get the Godfather's account. And so I got that. And then I met a guy named H. Webb Blesley of McDonald's. He was the regional manager here. And before I was doing any Godfather's deals, I called him up and I said, I'd like to come visit with you. And he said, okay. And he said, what would you like to do? And I said, I'd like to do your deals. And he said, well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever done a restaurant deal? And I said, no, sir. Well, at least you can tell the truth. And this is Monday morning, again, a Monday morning. And I'm sitting in Kansas City. He says, I'll see you in St. Louis for lunch at 12:30. It's 8 o'clock. There was no GPS. And meeting Webb Blesley and meeting Norman Lease turned my life to a lot of things because it made me understand how to do transactions. It was an unbelievable ride. I met people like Sam Walton because of Webb Blesley. I met a guy that people in town probably don't like a lot, but I still would shake his hand as Stan Kroenke because of McDonald's. I met the Home Depot people. I met the Target people. I met a lot of different people because of the ability to say that I represented Godfather's Pizza. I represented McDonald's. I represented Payless Shoes. I represented Taco Bell. I represented, Pearl Vision. So I was able to, get these clients that allowed me to be something of a phenomenon back there. And I probably have done 500-600 freestanding deals as a broker. But I knew that being a broker was not what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a developer. And today when people come to my office and say, we want to be a developer, I said, what does that really mean? I don't know what that means. I still am trying to figure that out after 49 years. To me, it means being able to see the whole field, like the quarterback, and going 100 yards and scoring. But there's a lot of opportunities to fumble the ball and things like that. And you have to be good at vision, thinking about your blind spots, thinking about what you're not knowing, finance. There's a lot of things. So, yeah, this is my early career. And, I stayed in Kansas City for 1976 to 1983 in the office of Leo Eisenberg. In fact, Lee Wilansky, who's still a friend of mine today, decided to leave. And I've known Lee Wilansky since 1977. And it was an opportunity. I've never been to St. Louis in my life. And I love St. Louis. I wouldn't live anywhere else. I like that.
I've read that, you've mentioned a few times in other media sources that you can live anywhere and have the ability to really live anywhere, but you choose to live in St. Louis.
I do. I spend about 60% of my time here. I have a house in Denver. I have a house in Steamboat, but okay. It's nice to visit. But I like living here. I like the people here. I like the culture here. And I think it's a great place. I raised my kids here. I think they'll tell you that, it was almost like Omaha, Nebraska. It's Midwest. It's not too fancy. When I moved here in 83, it was a lot more fancy than it was today. But I like it a lot. I really do. And, I think the city's been good to me, and I think I've been good to the city.
I would agree with that, especially as someone who lives in Chesterfield and gets to benefit from your developments on a daily basis. I think your impact is truly felt by people in the region. I'm from Toronto originally. I really love St. Louis. I think this is a great place to be, great place to raise a family. I hope my kids, when they're older, decide to stay in St. Louis and help with the population growth. You know that we need a little bit of help there, but aside from that, great place to be. Just going back to kind of the brokerage experience you were talking about, dealing with all those retail tenants, is that what opened your eyes to the possibilities that exist for you as a developer? Like just realizing that maybe those tenants need a type of shopping center that's not being built for them? Or
I think running into Sam Walton was probably one of the luckier things I got to do, because I got to do Walmart deals because of what I did. I came up with an idea in Excelsior Springs. That's by Liberty, Excelsior Springs in Kansas City. And I saw a big Walmart store and I couldn't find a site. So I picked up the phone and tried to meet Sam Walton, and he wouldn't meet me. And so I drove down to Bentonville and said, Mr. Walton, everybody has to go to the bathroom. I said, I just sat next to the bathroom. And he said, well, what do you need? I said, I have an idea. And he looked at me like nobody had thought about creating an out parcel on a shopping center. And this is what I came up with. And I got a deal done with him. And he allowed me to become a developer for Walmart. Representing these fast foods or different retailers allowed me to understand how to develop. And there wasn't, I made a lot of mistakes along the way. There was a gentleman who's very wealthy, who's still alive today, Phil Ruffin, who's worth billions, that lives in Las Vegas. He had a convenient food store, foods out of Wichita. And I'll never forget this great lesson. So I was down in Sedalia, Missouri for him. And I found a site, and he says, well, let's get it going. I said, well, I'm just the broker. And he said, you're fired. I expect you to get the zoning, the entitlement. If you can't do that, you're fired. And so I was like, wow, I screwed this up, because this is going to be, I thought this would be my next big thing to do, convenient food stores. And it took me 9 months to get back. I was relentless. Mr. Ruffin, I'm sorry. I drove to Wichita, sat in the office, said, I'm sorry. Give me a second chance. So, there's lessons on everything. And, it's a nuanced lesson. And, it was the golden age of strip shopping centers. We did business with Kroger, that's no longer here, but they had a lot of stores. We did business with, I did Walmart. I couldn't do Target. I couldn't do Kmart, but that was okay. But then you had the Home Depots show up in the early 90s, and the Lowe's, and, I call them, quote, the mini boxes, whoever they were, like Best Buy and, just people like that, and TJ Maxx and things like that. And it was just an opportunity that I had, I was at the right place at the right time, but recognized how to do this. And, I had some great partners and great mentors. I have had probably 10 to 12 great mentors. I have one today that I talk to every day. He's my senior advisor, Larry Meisel in Denver. And, it's always good to have the yin and yang. Playing tennis with yourself is no fun. You always win. So I like playing tennis with people and just talking to people. And you never know when you show up what you might accomplish, who you might meet. So I've always enjoyed that.
As a young man, where do you think you found the confidence to go out to Bentonville and talk to Sam Walton, or to be partners with, people throughout your career, seek out mentors throughout your career who are maybe a couple of steps ahead of you?
As long as you were able to articulate and tell people and do what you say you're going to do. This isn't, not everything's not easy. You have to be creative. You have to think about it. And you have to have the desire. And sure, you have to fail. I've failed many times. And, failure is winning. And, people tell me today, well, you won. Well, I'm just get a chance to play tomorrow. I don't I like Bill Belichick. He sits on the sidelines, is happy, so we can play next season. Or Phil Jackson. I like the guys that are the managers that have the even keel. I don't get too excited about wins or losses. On losses, though, I say to myself, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? What should I have done? And so, I'm just always thinking about that. And, I don't consider this work. This is just a fun thing I get to do every day. And, it's a financial risk. And, I don't hit a button like a lot of people I see today. Oh, we did that. We checked that box, or we texted you, or email. No, you can't put a pencil through the phone. You got to show up and understand what you're trying to do.
I've heard from others. An example, I'm sure he won't mind me saying, Ben Hillman. He said that you're one of the best landlords he's ever had, in terms of their concept out there in the district, and he said it's because you're willing to go out there, see how their operation can improve, how other tenants can improve. You're really focused on seeing what tenants are going to be a good mix or complement each other. Were you always that hands-on with your developments, or when you were thinking about tenant mix and things like that?
As crazy it is, yeah. I'm just relentless, and I like to put myself in their shoes, understand how I can help them. I was in the restaurant business with 6 different chains, and I didn't do well. I didn't lose a lot of money. I didn't make any money, but for the time and energy and effort that I put in, probably wasn't the best thing, but it made me a better businessman. And so I do think about like the district you mentioned, and I'm proud of the district, and that's a whole story how I got it from Billy and Bobby Taubman. But, I got this outlet center and it was losing money. Everybody says, what are you going to do? I said, I'm not really sure. I really don't know what I'm going to do. So I sat back, and you can't be in a hurry. You can't just have a knee jerk. So I said to myself, okay, Top Golf showed up. Okay, that was a lucky thing, and then Main Event showed up. And then I said, okay, I'm going to put in a music place. And I called a couple people, and they said, that's really dumb. That's really dumb. What do you know about the music business? I said, I know nothing about it. But that's what I think is needed out in Chesterfield. And it was, going to be an entertainment area. And I thought I was going to call it the entertainment district, but I like to keep things simple. So I just called it the district.
So just for context, if anyone is not from St. Louis, Chesterfield is a growing suburb that's very desirable. There was a flood in the early 90s.
93.
And that made, I think the number was like 400 acres or something like that, available for development, essentially.
Well, what happened, if you want to back up a sec, so sure, be happy to do that. It was interesting because I represented Walmart in St. Louis, Mr. Broker, that, when you represent someone like that, it's a status, but you have to check your ego at the door. You can't let, say, oh, I represent, you gotta be careful. You want to be positive, but you don't want to be too positive. So I went to Louis Sachs at the mall, and he owned all the real estate around the mall in Chesterfield. And back then, there wasn't anybody living in Chesterfield. It was just nobody. And he said, nope, don't want you to be the buy the mall. So I said, okay. So then in 1993, in July, it was the big flood. And my father-in-law of blessed memory and I stood by the DoubleTree and over the bridge, the Parkway Bridge, and I saw 18 feet of water, and I saw my friend at Annie Gunn's, Tom Sainerd, the pig, only thing, his legs. And so I said, well, there's an opportunity here. So I couldn't get Lou Sachs to help me, but a mentor of mine named I.E. Millstone actually made the difference with Lou Sachs because he lent him the money to get the mall ground. So
is there any relationship there between him and Millstone Weber? Is that?
Yes, that was, yeah.
Okay.
He did that. Bob Millstone's a dear friend of mine. So I would see him, I'd pick out people like him, and he wasn't in the real estate business per se. Sure. And, he became my mentor, and I would have, lunch or breakfast, at least once a month. And, here's a guy, I knew him until he was 102 years old. And I always picked his brain. Well, Mr. Millstone, how would you do this? And he'd give me about history. And I always tell people, history, you connect the dots. The future's unlimited. So you can, you don't need any dots in the future, but you got to remember how you got there. So IE helped me with Lou Sachs, and Lou says, okay, I'm going to help you with the city of Chesterfield. Now, the city had been around since 87. And, they didn't know what to do down there. And we had this levee problem, and we had this. And so Lou says, I'm going to help you. So I started accumulating land down in the valley, and I got to 400 acres. Then I had to figure out how to build an interchange, how to fix the levee, how to convince the FAA, because there is a private airport there. You can't have lights and certain things like that. And then how do you get the material across? So I was able to build the interchange. That's the first private interchange that the state took over. They told me it was going to take 3 years to do. And it was a $45 million. I did it for 11 and built it in 11 months. Then I fixed all the levees, and there are 500-year engineered levees now. And I think there's 17 miles. The humans of the levee district were the attorneys and partners in there. We were able to go to FEMA and get money. I think we put up locally $10 million, and the federal government, the state gave us 6 times match. But one of the things that I have some vision is, and this is long before people are riding bikes, I said the levee top has to have 10 to 12 feet of flat area. And I remember the gentleman at FEMA saying, well, it's going to be $500,000 more. I said, this has got to be a recreational. So we got that done, and we built the interchange. It was a lot of interesting things. I brought in over 1 million yards of material. So we built the Chesterfield Commons in 8 different phases. Today, it's 2 miles long, 2 million square feet. And, I'm proud of that. What I'm most proud of is that there was nothing to copy. The buildings I created, they look good today. They still look good. And, we're doing pretty good. We're about 99% leased. So I'm pretty happy. And, it's good. Nobody thought that the Chesterfield Commons area, it does about $800 or $900 million of sales. And nobody thought it would ever do anything like that. In fact, when Walmart opened in 99, I remember David Glass calling me, telling me, and he was the head of the CEO of Walmart, it's the worst Walmart we have. Well, today it's in the top 10%. You just can't flip a switch and hope that people come. So because I was able to build the Commons, and I'm into keeping things simple, Chesterfield Commons, Boone's Crossing, the district, downtown Chesterfield. So I built the Commons, and that's how I met Billy and Bobby Topman. They built the outlet center. It wasn't successful, and they asked me to help them take it over and recreate it. So it was a good feeling, and it's been an evolution. I've owned the outlet center, and it's now for the first time we're finally getting leased up. But I was very particular because you mentioned Ben Hillman. I wanted to make sure we had local tenants, local restaurants. Sure, Main Event is a national. They have 60, 70, 80 locations, but they only have one in St. Louis. At the time, Topgolf only had one in St. Louis. The factory, there's only one factory, and I was going to call it the Music Factory. And then I said, no, that's going to limit it. So we call it the factory. We have speakers there. We have comedy there. We've had a WWE there. We've had a lot of different things. In fact, I'm really happy because the soccer team from here is going to have the opening event for all their ticket holders. So it's really, and I built it as I went around the country looking at different venues. I've never done this before. I like music a lot. What's that mean? So I went around the country and looked at 2025 music venues and came up with the best of the best. And today I think the factory is the best venue in America. We started off a little slow because of COVID, but we have already hit, and as of today, for the bookings this year, 102 shows. But I also had another theory, is that even if we don't get the shows, it'd make a great private events. People don't want to go to hotels. We have free parking. It's ingress, egress off the interchange. And the other thing I thought about from my McDonald's days was drive times. Webb Leslie and Bill Hayes came up, and I was involved. Not many people know that, but there was a McDonald's on the river. Mm-hmm. I did that with them.
Oh, really? Okay.
And they used to look at this and say, well, the population. I said, no, it's not the population. This was my idea. I said, it's drive times. How long does it take you to get there? Fast food, the drive time is it used to be less than 10 minutes. So now I said, what is the drive time for us at the factory? it's 22 minutes. People in St. Louis perceive drive time as 22 minutes. I get to over 1 million people in 22 minutes. So it's just those kind. Who knows why I think this? I don't know. So we were able to create that, and then it led to buying part of the mall, and going forward on the downtown, which is our newest project, and it's going to be exciting.
So my family, we are at the Commons regularly, the longest shopping center in America.
It's 2 miles long, yes.
And I've seen the evolution of the district. So like you mentioned, Top Golf, Main Event, and then you have the factory, the hub, and then I think there's a pickleball concept opening up soon, and there's a gym. So there's a lot going on there. But I feel like, and it sounds like based on your previous projects as well, you're on the cutting edge of retail development. So like if you go back 100 years, it was Main Street and then regional shopping centers and then big box, and as you put it, mini box. And today it looks like we're kind of shifting back to like a Main Street experiential type of retail experience.
I think it depends on what the tenants are and what you're trying to create. We have other centers that we're doing, where targets are up in Firestone, Colorado, Thornton, who's Cabela's. It has to depend on the neighborhood and what you're really trying to do with the land and the need of the community. The entertainment district, the district itself with the hub and all that, there's nothing like this in the United States. I mean, here you are, and we're getting, just to give you an idea, at the hub, and it's finally coming together. Last year, we averaged 80,000 visitors a month.
Wow.
Just to the hub, and we're going to have 71 events there this year. That's not TV and football games. It's bands, private events, nonprofits, plays, movies. We built a stage. It's open to the public. And why is it open to the public? Because I want people to come out and spend money. I do benefit from the money they spend, but it's also safe and it's family friendly. And that's what I wanted to do. And I tried to explain that. It's different than the Commons. Commons is your typical big box shopping center that, people drive in to come to. They don't want to go to the mall. Malls are kind of, passe, but, there's some good malls still. Plaza Frontenac is still relevant, the Galleria, West County. But it's you have to understand, one size doesn't just fit all for development. And you have to really think about what you're trying to do and who the market is. And that's why when I did the district, I thought differently. I thought, how can I create something that's different, that is not typical? And, the outlet center sounded great, but when you put two of them together, one's going to fail. There's only so many tenants to go around. And so downtown is a completely different thing. So the reason I got involved in the mall was I said to myself, well, I got the Commons, I got the district. I don't want anybody to come up the street and compete with me. So my associate Tim Lowe and I knew the real estate people for Sears, and I offered them exactly what they wanted, and they were shocked. They said, "Well, really?" I said, "Yeah, we'll close in 30 days." And I knew once I got that, because Tim was part of Westfield and CBL, he helped redevelop the Pennies where the AMC was in the Cheesecake, that you had a seat at the table. And then someone came in and bought the mall, even though we bid on it. I thought we were going to get it. And finally, they realized that maybe we're going to get it done differently, and they sold it to us. So it's been an evolution. And today we have 110 acres. Dillard's is going to reopen. We own the Macy's building. We're going to convert it to some retail on the first floor. Hopefully a couple grocery stores have interest in it with indoor parking, just like Deerbrug's on Manchester Road and De Pere has. We're going to have 2,500 apartment units. When I say apartments, it can be condos, townhouses, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 1 million square feet of retail, 1 million square feet of office. It's a couple $2 billion. And people say, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm not in a hurry. It's the mall's under demolition now. It's going to be done by April. Our grading with the roads, the streets, the lights, et cetera, will be done in 1.5 years. And then the marketplace will determine. But the signature that I wanted, which is different than any other mixed use, it's not mixed use. It's a downtown. I tell people it's a downtown. It's as much land as in Clayton, Missouri. And I said, it's interesting. And, the city of St. Louis was one time the place. Clayton at one time was the place. Now, Chesterfield day has come, and it's got plenty of great things. It's got an amphitheater, it's got lakes, it's got bikes, it's got soccer fields. And so it's really, fortuitous of me that the timing has been great. But it's not a mixed use. It's really truly a downtown, and not many people would take the middle of it, 3.5 acres, and put a park. And people say, why are you doing that? I want it to be a gathering place. People like that. I'm not looking, this isn't about, a lot of developers, they only do it to make as much money as they can and they sell as fast. Most of the projects I've been involved in, I still own. Chesterfield Commons is 27 years old. Prairie Center and outside of Denver is 31 years old. So I'm into keeping things and making sure they're maintained and making sure that they're built right and not just what's today's fad.
For someone like you who has as much experience as you have, when you're doing a project like downtown Chesterfield, which I think has probably never been done before, building a downtown from scratch, is it, and you're thinking in terms of decades, it's not like you're going to see a return in a year or 2 or 3. Is it still difficult to get lenders or other parties on board, or even the municipality?
Well, the first thing you said is the municipality. You had to convince, and the nice thing is that I've been in Chesterfield since 1995. So, and several of the people on the council are still there from 1995. But it's hard because, all the residents, oh my God, you're going to do this and the traffic this and the traffic that. And, it took us 7 years to get our public finance done, the city to give us our final zoning. I mean, everybody has an opinion and everybody's worried. Change is hard. And, I tell everybody, I think I've done exactly what I said I'm going to do. And, I said, look at the district. And so I have a track record. And, I value that you have to do what you say you're going to do. You just have to. And that's the only reason I got the Taubman deal, because I shook hands with Billy and Bobby Taubman on an easement, and someone tried to pay me money not to honor it. And I just said no. My handshake is my bond. That's going back to growing up with my dad. He taught me a lot of life lessons. One of the lessons was I'm 10 years old. I wanted a red coat, go big red, and he said, well, you can earn this coat. I said, okay. And he had a sixplex that he had kind of begged, borrow, and steal to get. And it was terrible. And I'm in the basement, and I'm going to just use a number. Let's say the coat was $10, and I worked 40 hours at 25 cents an hour. This is like 1964. So I come home, and my dad says, well, it's time to settle up. And I look at him, and I said, okay. And he takes 10 $1 bills out and puts 5 in a pile, 3 in a pile, and 2 in a pile. And I can see it as I'm sitting here right now. And he says, young man, he called everybody young man, and my brothers. Young man, what do you think? I said, well, sir, we called him sir. Please, please lead the way. And he said, well, the $5 is yours. Now, this code is 10. I'm making it up because, the times are a little different. And I'm starting to think this isn't going to go well. And then he says, that $3, thank you for being my partner. I'm thinking, he says, you like the food? You like the roof over your head? You like that I drive you? Thank you for being my partner. And then he says to me, the Torah, tells you, you need to give money away. And he said, it's 10%. That's what the Torah teaches you. I said, yes, sir. I'm well aware because we went to the synagogue a lot. We were very religious. And he said, but we're not a 10% family. We're a 20% family. So thank you. Of course, I'm 10 years old, fat little kid, run upstairs and he waits about an hour and he says, well, you've missed dinner. So I suggest you come to the synagogue with me now and bring your $2. So I did. And then, I got to work another 40 hours to do the same thing again. So that was a life lesson I'll never forget that my dad taught me. You have to treat your partners right. You have to treat, nonprofits right, and I'm sure you'll talk about that, and how to do things. And I did get that red coat. I have a replicate in my office, and it taught me a lot.
It sounds like your experiences growing up and then in business have helped you shape, and also some of your natural ability as well, have helped you kind of shape and form this skill set of being able to look forward and being able to see the future and be a visionary. So just on the downtown Chesterfield topic, before we move on to some of the philanthropic
Sure.
stuff, what can we expect in a couple of years, and what do you think will be 10
Well,
or 15 years from now?
No, that's a great. This is good because people are in a hurry. This isn't instant coffee. I'm brewing a cup of coffee. I don't know. However, I do know this, that when I get the roads in, now these roads are going to be different. There's a lot of nuances by the park. These roads are 12 and a half foot wide roads with 60-degree parking, not parallel parking you see in most downtowns. You see people struggling, and they're 9.5 by 20-foot depth. These are nice. So someone driving a truck, you can not be, and so and the landscaping and the way it's graded. So I want people to really see the vision first. And we're going to spend in the next 16 months, $35 million. And to put this in so people can see it. I'm not in a hurry today to go make a deal. I don't want to make something. This is a signature project. Now, at the district, if I put a 3,000 square foot restaurant and it doesn't do well, I'm okay because it's not going to affect things. But this is really a lot of thinking. And so I'd say in 3 or 4 years, you'll see some residential. We have people that are interested in the 55 and over active. We have seniors. We have apartments for the younger generation, because there's Bayer and there's Pfizer and, everybody's out there and they want, but it will not be a community that will have a lot of kids, and that not because I'm have anything against that, but I just know the demographics. There's a lot of empty nesters there. And so that's really I say 8 to 10 years, we'll be in pretty good shape.
And if you do, I saw on some of the preliminary plans, there may be some single family homes. My wife and I, we plan to move to downtown if there are some single family homes, because we like the safety of Chesterfield. We like the schools. We like the diversity. We like the ease of access to everything, especially from that location. You're right off 64. And then we want a walkable environment. We just want it on our terms, which is what, something in Chesterfield
Absolutely.
would be.
The amphitheater, the YMCA, the JCCA, there's a lake across the street in Wild Horse. It's 8 to 10 minute walk. It's just, you're going to have relationships. So the police department at Chesterfield is going to have a substation there. I'm going to give them a substation. I'm going to have 3 officers at all times. I think that's pretty good. We're going to have a new firehouse down on the Parkway. I'm trying to, it's a partnership. It's, I want this so people feel good. This is going to be very walkable. The ring road is 1.5 miles. We got a 12-foot bike lane. We got a 10-foot sidewalk. We have landscaping. It's going to be really nice. And, one of the things is that it's the walkability, and it's the nuances that people can't see. And that was the hard thing with the city of Chesterfield, is they couldn't see it. Most people can't see it. I can see it. I'm not sure you can see it, but until people, and that's not most people can't until they see it physically. That's why when I get done with the grading and everybody says, oh, the Macy's building's in a hole. It's not in a hole. And the mall's coming down, and pretty soon you'll be able to understand somewhat of the vision. So I'm taking my time. And it's like no different than the Commons. It wasn't built at once. It took 12 years. I had the right tenants. To make sure I had the right, and I made sure it was the right architecture and the right ingress, egress, and, the right signage. These things are people, it just doesn't happen. So this week, as a matter of fact, we went out to Cherry Creek North in Denver that has this modern, they only have 60 acres. It's not a downtown, but they have residential. So I met the gentleman that runs the Cherry Creek North. And I asked him about his security, his marketing, and, signage. And we just walked around to make sure we could figure out how to have the best in class. At the intersections, we call those, we're going to have areas that are raised 4 inches. Now you say, well, that's not much. But when people are driving, they feel that they slow down. And there'll be brick at that area rather than just concrete. These are things I don't have to do. There's nothing in my zoning that says that. But I think it's the right thing to do.
It sounds like a key piece of downtown Chesterfield for you may be legacy as well. And I think some of your giving may be driven by legacy. Don't want to speak for you, but just, looking at what's online, a lot of your giving is focused on the Jewish community and the local St. Louis community, but you give to a lot of other causes as well. I just want to mention 2 things before we jump into that, because we have about 3 minutes to noon. I know you have a hard cut off.
That's all right. Go ahead. I'm enjoying this more now,
okay. So 2 things I want to mention. I heard you say, I'm paraphrasing, but I heard you say something along the lines of, you put your pants on one leg at a time. So how many pairs of pants do you need? And that's, kind of why, one of the reasons why you give the way you do. And then another thing, I was at a restaurant maybe a month or 2 ago. I thought the waiter was a very driven young man. So I asked him, what his plans are, what he's working on. And I put him in touch with a commercial real estate broker because he said he's interested in commercial real estate. But he told me, and I don't even know if you're aware of this just because of how much giving you do, but he told me, yeah, Michael Staenberg was in here a couple months ago, and he, as my tip, he paid for my college or something along those lines.
I gotta be honest, when I say that, I'm always honest, but people have helped me so much along the way. And I have these sayings, one leg at a time. I mean, I don't care who you are. I really don't. I just look at the person. As long as they're a nice person, they show up on time. I'm not looking to 4.0 Harvard friends and things like that. I just, people are nice. I don't care who you are. I don't, today's world, there's so much worried about who they are, this, that. I'm just thinking, okay, do what you say you're going to do. Don't be angry. And I do say that to people, put your, and, I've been involved in the professional sport world and, everybody, oh my God, but they put their pants on one leg at a time. They're no different than anybody else. And just, it's just simple things about being who you are, and check your ego at the door. Oh, I got ego. Believe me, I have an ego, but I check it at the door. I don't need to, I was 13 years old and I thought I was a good bowler. And I was pretty good, had a 200 average, and I thought, pretty good. And I don't know this gentleman who it is, but he put his arm around me and said, Michael, you're really a good bowler, but you don't need to tell everybody. They know. And you diminish who you are by telling everybody. Just bowl. And I'll never forget that. I still, to this day, remember him saying that to me. And that's why I say that put your, one leg at a time. Everybody's human. Everybody's got, I always look at the good side, and, I trust people until they don't trust me. And yes, so you were mentioning about the young man. So I was at Bricktop, and I had a waiter, and the kid was great. Absolutely fantastic. You can tell. And, he didn't know me from Adam. And so I said, so what are you going to do? I said, you're a great waiter, but you have more talent than being a waiter. Well, I don't know. I think I'm going to get into residential real estate. I said, you're going to go to college. He said, I don't have any money for that. I said, well, what does that mean? Well, he lives in St. John's and, he's trying to help. And I said, I'll tell you what, are you going to go to college if you had the chance? Yeah. I said, go find a 2-year college. And let's make sure you take 2 or 3 classes a year or, semester. And if you get a B average, I'm paying. And he said, really? I said, yeah, come to my office because there's a gentleman in my office named Josh Dull. Josh called me when he was 18 years old and said, I'd like to be in the real estate business. I said, Josh, what are you doing? And he said, I said, I'll tell you what we're going to do. You go to community college. Did the same thing with him. I said, then go get a job for a year and then call me. And he did exactly that. And now he works for me. So I said, Josh, this gentleman is now your protege. So if I can help this young man becomes something that he's not today, I won. You know what? And I don't need, it doesn't matter. And I said, don't, I don't even know how you know this, but I did do that. And, I try to help people, and my philosophy is I didn't get here by myself. I had a lot of people help me do this, and say, you're a dumb shit. I said, yeah, you're right. And I've done a lot of dumb things, but I've done some pretty good things. And, I try to help people that want to help themselves. It's not, I meet a lot of kids that don't want to help themselves. You could just give them everything and it's not going to change. I don't even want to waste my time on those kids anymore. You know what? You got to want to do it. And if you don't want to do it, then it doesn't matter. You know what I'm talking about.
So with that, the gentleman at Bricktops, it's funny because I saw something in him and I wanted to help him. And my way of helping was connecting him with someone. But when he mentioned that you are paying for or going to pay for his college, that sparked something in me that it was motivational for me, because there are truly levels of being able to give back. And this morning when I was driving over, I was listening to another show you were on, and you mentioned you used to give anonymously and you don't do that anymore because you want to maybe motivate people or just be a good example. And I thought that was a perfect example because it motivated me.
Well, the thing is, again, I had I.E. Millstone. There was another gentleman here named Tommy Green, who was a very dear friend. And, I met him in 1984. There was a problem with, and he was really the guy in the Jewish community that led a lot of things. And where I'm sitting at a table and they were going around the table and, one says in 1984, I'll put 5,000 in, I'll put 2,500. They got to me and I looked at it, I said, I have 50. I didn't have any money. And I went up to him afterwards and I said, Mr. Green, I'm nice to meet you. And he says, well, first of all, my name's Tommy. And I said, well, I'd love to, and I had Gray Turner tell me, go meet people and have breakfast or lunch with them. People like to have food and they'll tell you a lot more. I said, I'd like to have breakfast with you. He says, okay, I'll see you tomorrow morning at the St. Louis Club, but you have to wear a suit. Do you have a suit? I didn't have a suit. He said, no problem. Let me go help you get a suit this afternoon. And he got me, a suit. And I showed up, and for the next, 35 years, once a month, every or twice a month, we'd have breakfast or lunch. And he said to me one day, you got to quit giving anonymously. You got to put your name down there. You got to inspire people, because people want to give with people who are successful. And he said, and so I started my foundation, my family foundation, and he was the first member. And he really shaped how I thought about things. And really, without him and Mr. Millstone and Irv and Arvin Gottlieb and my buddy Larry, I wouldn't be who I am today. And, it's really watching these people and understanding how they look at things. And it's, everybody's different. I'm different than Larry. I'm different than Arvin, but, and I have a lot of different goals. I don't need a lot of material things. I'm blessed to have what I have. And, as I said, how many pairs of pants can you wear? How many pairs of shoes can you have? And my philosophy is, is to give and let people know. There's a lot of times I give and people have no idea. But if I want to inspire a group and, to make sure and inspire young people, and have that ripple effect, as I call it, that pebble can be a boulder or it could be a dime, but it does create a wave. And just to get people, and that's my greatest sense of success today, is to see people say they can do it. And that's really important to me, to see people that can make a difference. Really make, and it's not hard. Everybody has, I was told the other day, I said this 20 years ago, the 3 T's, time, talent, and treasure. Well, everybody has one of those 3 T's, but I like to combine all 3. And that's been part of my giving, because I just don't give money. I help them develop, save money. I help them raise money. I help them do a lot of different things that can make a difference. The KIPP school down on Jefferson. I walked in, I was embarrassed for those kids. And Erica Zoll said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I don't want a committee. When a committee, you get a camel. I just want a horse. I'll just fix this place. And she says, it's $1 million. I did it for 290, 300,000. I just did it myself. I had my guys go do it. It's got beautiful art. The kids are proud of it. The gym now has lights you can actually see. They have buckets you can actually play on. The floor has been redone so you can actually, play. And every kid needs a chance. My big thing is the place, the building, you got to have pride in it. If you don't have, I don't care how much, you can go to Harvard and have the smartest kids, but if you have a bad place to go to school, you're not going to go. So that's one of my big things.
And just so you know, I'm good on time, but we're
I am
six
too.
or
Go
seven.
ahead.
Okay. So it sounds like, because you probably have, and everyone will have many different areas where they can give. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that knock on your door asking for donations for various
There's
causes.
only been 3 today so far.
But it sounds like you're giving where you think you can add value and they're aligned with your maybe personal core values. So aside from the example you gave, are there other examples that really stand out to you for,
I want to help kids because I was one of those kids. Principal really helped me in high school kind of focus on who I should be. Dr. Tangal, he was very instrumental, but I want to help kids. I live locally, give locally. I think I can make a bigger difference. And, when I pass away, I'm going to have a nice estate and it's going to be given away in 7 years. There's no Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation. Give it away. Help people today. Help people, and I think Tim Eberline of Siteman has done a fantastic job. How do I help St. Louis? How do I make St. Louis a better place? And yes, I do give about 70% to Jewish causes, okay? But I give to 30% non-Jewish. I've been involved at the zoo, Forest Park forever, the Sheldon, Coca. I could go on, and I've built different schools. But I think it's important that your investment, if it's, and this doesn't want to sound, but if it's a $5,000 donation, okay. But if it's something larger, I want to make an impact. I want, and one of the things I'm most proud is at the Regional Business Council, it's our region fund. And, I was sitting there one day thinking, and Kathy Osborne was in charge. And I said, Kathy, how do we give away $100,000 a year to 30 to 40 organizations that I call our orphan organizations? Their annual budget is $25,000 to $100,000. And she said, I never thought of that. I said, let's do it. And she came up with the name. I can't take credit for that. But we give away $100,000 a year to 20 to 30 organizations. And that $5,000 to $10,000 that we give them is huge. I remember a food pantry in North St. Louis didn't have the right walk-in cooler. Got them the right walk-in cooler. Now, let's say I didn't go buy it. I called my friends in the business, and I got them to donate it. I had to pay for the putting it in, but they were able to serve an extra 800 families. They don't need to know who I am, but think about that. When you're hungry, it's not a good feeling. I've been there. Growing up, it's really not good when you can't go buy anything and you're hungry and you have really no food. It's a terrible feeling. Most people in America don't realize that. I know. My kids said, will you, please? But it's important. And it's important for people to realize that you can do it. And so I've done a lot of different things and I'm proud of, I've built a couple hockey rinks. I don't know. There's a lot of things. I've been involved in hospitals and schools and camps. Just what's going to make the world a better place. And and so I think about this a lot. And, I've become more restricted in my thought process as I get older on what I really want to accomplish. There's a lot of good, but I also, in my giving, after 3 to 5 years, you got to wean me off of you. I can't continue. There was the Ready Readers program that I gave for 5 years, college bound. Helping kids get into college. But I said to them, okay, great. You got kids in the college. They don't know what to do in the college. How are you going to help them? You can't just send a kid to college. Oh, that's a good idea. But then I said, more importantly, they get out of college. How are you going to help them get a job? Who gives them the life skills to do that? I got lucky that Irv would hire me. Who knows? But I mean, there's more than that. And that's how I think about things. It's not the direct right here, but it's the next step. What if you do this, what's the next step? And I think about that all the time.
You're clearly a very deep thinker, and even in your charitable acts, you're hands-on the same way you are with
Oh, I
real
drive
estate.
everybody crazy. I mean, leave me alone. I don't need any help. I think about, and it's like and I'll tell these organizations, I want to understand your financials. I want people to be accountable. I don't, everybody, we can all make mistakes, but you're here to help people. How are you going to do this? How are you going to make an impact? And you have a responsibility of taking people's money and doing the right thing. It's not about, and I've had to tell founders and people that start organizations that it's time for them to leave. Football coaches do retire, and it's hard. And, most people can't change. And I spend a lot of time thinking about that. I'm a deep thinker on Saturday and Sundays when I get up, but during the week and I try to think about really what makes an impact and how to make an impact. And I see things that I'm fortunate able to do, and it's not that hard. So
I appreciate you sharing that. And I would like to ask you a lot more questions, but I want to be respectful of your time as well. The way we end each show is with what we call a hole-in-one, which is your greatest piece of advice that you can give to someone that they can apply to either their life or business. You've shared a lot of wisdom, but do you have something else that...
The hole-in-one,
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good one. I think probably just to show up on time. That's my biggest thing. Show up on time and be prepared. And just, people, it's disrespectful. Now, I was 3 minutes late today, and I'll tell you that right on the air, but I couldn't find the address. I wasn't sure where I was going, but you got to show up on time. That's my biggest, there's no magic formula out there. Showing up is 90% of the battle. And I tell these kids that, and then there's the second hole, the third hole, what you can get done, but respond, be appropriate, say thank you. Most people don't know how to say thank you. Well, I'm not looking for a hug or anything. Just say thank you. It's the most powerful word. One, I guess it's 2 words, thank you, that you can do. That's all you have to do. Say thank you, and remember how you got there.
Quick question for you on that, because that's a great piece of advice. And I do need to implement the being on time, because sometimes I get scrambled with a bunch of stuff going on, but it's something that's on my mind. So thanks for the reminder. But on the thank you piece, do you think in this day and age, handwritten thank you notes, cards are impactful? Like, for example, after this, I'd probably write you a note. It's what I do.
Yeah, not as much. Picking up the phone and just saying, thank you. I really enjoyed meeting you. And I would say, well, what can I do for you? Is there anybody else you want me to help you introduce you to? But when you an email or a handwritten, it doesn't really get the same as when you talk to people or face to face. That's all. Thank you. That's my big thing is, and most people don't know how to say thank you. It's amazing. I mean, it's just amazing that people don't know how to say thank you. And I'm not sure what happened. It's not thoughtful. It's not gratitude. I just say thank you. That's what I say to people. Be thankful. Just say thank you. That's all you have to do. And I tell my kids that all the time. They're tired of hearing from me half the time. But anytime something happens, they always write, call or maybe write a note or an email or a text. Thank you. That's it.
Well, Michael, thank you for your time. I do appreciate it. This was a great conversation. We'll be sure to link your personal website and the Staenberg Group website as well in the show notes.
Okay.
So if anyone wants to learn more about the district, downtown Chesterfield, or yourself personally, they
Perfect.
Can go
and I'm here to help people. I mean that. I mean, again, I didn't get here by myself. I gave a speech the other night that said, I'm up here by myself, but I'm really not by myself, because everybody in this room is responsible.
Well, thank you so much. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.